All right, so we got a video that I'm filming. It's on a 2000 Camaro SS, my 2000 SS. It's got the LS1. Just doing a water pump replacement. It's pretty simple. First thing you're gonna do, drain all the coolant. Get the radiator cap open. You don't want to be working on this car if it's hot. Any car you don't really want to work on if it's hot. Then you gotta deal with uncomfortable conditions, whatever the case may be. And then once the vehicle's cool, drain the coolant, take the radiator cap off, let the air flow through there. And then once this drained, you'll be ready to move on to the next step. Next, you want to go ahead and take off the air intake, take off the mass airflow sensor, the entire intake plenum, the bellow. What I do is I just unloosen. It's either 8mm or you can just use a flathead screwdriver. Pop the two front clips off, so you can gain access to all the hoses for the upper radiator hoses for the radiator, and the hoses that go into the water pump. So once you get those off, get everything exposed, you'll be good. Pull that off the throttle body, and then once everything's exposed, you better get those pliers in there. Take off the hoses, and then just go from there. Next, all you need to do is gain access to your tensioner pulley, wherever it may be. Pull off the drive belt or serpentine belt, whatever you want to call it, and then you're ready for the next step. Okay, next step, just something you want to do, take off the tensioner pulley itself, and then get access to the pump to allow easy removal. So this is the last step in removing that pulley itself, the entire pulley assembly. Once that is off, you can move on to getting the clearance for the rest of the hose removal. Okay, so the next thing you're going into here is removing these hose clamps. Just keep in mind, you don't want to damage any of these hoses. This is the heater hoses. Just make sure, you got the proper access. Don't stick your hand in there and jack your fingers up against these snap rings, because there's a lot of tension on them, a lot of pressure. You already drained the coolant, so you shouldn't get too much spillage coming out, but should be there where you can't manage to clean it up. So take both of those heater hoses off, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so now we got the back heater hose. I guess an inlet and an outlet for the pump. Pull that off, and then it's pretty simple. Move on to that next step. Okay, so for this next step, I'm just removing the upper and lower thermostat housing bolts. You don't have to go through this step, but for ease of access, less of an issue. I want to go ahead and remove that thermostat housing. Sometimes when you're replacing a water pump, some people choose to replace the thermostat housing. It's a cheap part. If you get it on Rock Auto, wherever you get it from, you can get it for a couple bucks. Easy, you might as well just take care of it while you're in there. But you can also do this by just leaving those two bolts in there, and instead of doing this step by removing the bolts, just remove the hose clamp, get it off the housing, and then pulling the hose off. It's pretty simple. So next step. Okay, for this next portion, I'm just removing the upper radiator hose that's coming right out of the water pump. With these radiator hoses, sometimes they are pretty strong. It's got a lot of tension up on them. Just make sure you're being careful. Not to send a hose clamp flying once you get it off. You pull it all the way off. If you don't back it onto the hose itself, but actually off whatever source it's from, whether if it's an outlet or inlet. Just be mindful of any tabs, clips you might have around you. Take some vice grips or some pliers or some actual hose clamp pliers, and then go to work, take care of what you need to take care of. We'll move on to the next step. So for this next portion of the video, you see the throttle cable right there. I went ahead and took it off ahead of time, removing any remaining hoses and belts. Just go ahead and get that out of the way now. If you got an AC belt like me, if you got any hoses running into your throttle body, whatever cables you may have, any extra wiring, any extra hoses you need to remove out the way, get that out the way now, because you roll into the final part of the removal process, excuse me. And you pretty much should be ready to go. Okay, next, just so I can get access to the bolts, it's fairly simple, easy to get to. I just went ahead and removed the outlet pulley, get the outlet pulley out the way so I can get the access to whatever bolts I may need to. It's only 3 bolts that's down there on I would say the driver's side of it, and then the passenger side of it, there's another 3 bolts right behind the water pump pulley itself. Once you get that off, you got the ease of access to those bolt locations. Hey man, so look, it's pretty simple at this point, pretty straightforward. I got the 6 bolts on the left and right side of the water pump pulley. All 6 of them out the way. But I gotta tell you, man, if you're using regular hand tools, you know, it's so many different power tools that's out there. If you don't want to use air, if you don't got an air compressor, I use all electric. I got a Husky little Home Depot electrical ratchet that I use, my go-to. Just go ahead and break it free. Use it like a regular ratchet, break it free, and then go ahead and hold the trigger down, and then run your bolts out. I love it. It helps me, with if there's times that I can't ratchet properly or if I can't turn the wrench. But it's broke. But I broke the tension free and broke the torque already. Easy day. So if you don't have one, I highly recommend you going out and grab one. They fairly inexpensive, but if you're doing it for DIY, even around the house, I think it's well worth it. All right, go ahead and pull her out. You scot-free. All right, so at this time, go ahead and inspect for damage. Take a little bit of water, flush out any metal shavings from the casting for when the piece was actually, made at the manufacturer, whoever it was. Make sure there's no foreign objects in there. Inspect it, blow it out with some air, whatever you might need to do. Just double check over it, make sure everything's good. You don't want any problems once you get this thing together. I bet. So I got it mounted. When I put it down in here, I just had to make sure that I didn't smash any of my connections. Make sure you got your gaskets lined up properly. Make sure they ain't on backwards. Make sure you don't cross thread any bolts. It's way far easier said than done. Too many times, people run these in, and I've been doing this for a while, so it's fairly simple for me. But just make sure your bolts ain't cross threaded. Make sure you don't smash anything along the way. Okay, so at this time, go ahead and get your inlet and outlet hoses for your heater hoses connected, and then after you get those connected, get that thermostat housing put back on with the thermostat in the correct direction. Go ahead and torque your 10mm bolts down. Be careful not to break them off into the new water pump. It'll be a bad day for anybody. Other than that, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so the first step now is to get that tensioner pulley reinstalled. Those 2 15mm bolts, get those threaded on. Then from there, get the rest of the pulleys mounted. Once you get the pulleys mounted, go ahead and replace your belt. Put your tensioner back, and then go ahead and put that belt up on there. It's fairly simple. Make sure the belt is ran in accordance to the proper routing procedure in the manual, or just look up on your engine bay somewhere. It should be there. Attach all your radiator hoses. Get all this stuff done. Get it out the way. Just make sure it's all correct. Take your time with it. Don't damage anything. Try not to tear any hoses. If you do, there's just more work you're gonna have to do. Go to the store. You have to worry about getting your coolant together, and air pockets getting assist. Really don't want that stuff. So try to alleviate that by taking your time. Don't rush. Making sure your hoses are seated completely and properly to the best you can. All right, so now move on to the throttle bodies. For my particular vehicle, it was 3 bolts. I mean, even on some vehicles, you know, whatever the case may be, if you're watching this on another vehicle, to execute it on another vehicle, you know, this specifically to a Chevy based engine, a GM based engine, excuse me, whether if it's 4.8 all the way up to a 6.2 liter V8 engine. But it's pretty much straightforward information. It's pretty simple. You really can't mess this stuff up, but hey, you know, we all start somewhere. Understand that very well. Just remember, you know, take your time with this stuff. Get all your connections hooked up. All I'm doing now is hooking everything up to the throttle body, getting all the wiring together. Excuse me, wiring all the hoses together, getting all my hoses lined up, getting them ran into the proper original locations. And then once that's done, we should be moving on to the rest of the final steps in the installation. Okay, cool. So unless you have an electronic throttle body, this doesn't really apply to this applies to you. Go ahead and connect your throttle body cable, get the anchor in there, and then run that through if you need to at this time. If it's an absolute must, you don't have to, but you know, it'll probably make your car run a little bit better. Go ahead and clean up your throttle body a little bit, spray some brake clean in there, whatever you got, carb cleaner, whatever you got. And then next we would just be moving on into reconnecting the air intake, plenum, the bellow, the whole nine, hooking up your wiring connections, and then we just wrap everything up. Okay, this time, this is the last part of the video. Make sure you attach the intake, plenum hoses, and the bellow. Whatever you have up there, any vacuum lines you may come across, mass airflow sensor, intake air temp sensor, throttle position sensor, whatever you might have. Get that stuff reconnected. You don't want your car running raggedy like crap because you forgot to hook up something. All right. Also, get the petcock valve in. You don't want to, release all your brand new coolant. Flush it out with some water if you want to beforehand. But to go ahead and bleed the system to prevent overheating, just take some coolant, pour it in there. Grab the upper or lower radiator hose after you fill it the first time. Squeeze that hose about 5 or 6 times till you get all the air bubbles out, get all the pockets out. Start it up, let it run, get out of the bottom, make sure there's no leaks. And then continuously do that until the system is fully bled. You'll know it's bled. You won't have any overheating, any issues like that. It'll run normal as it should. But other than that, that's all I got to end the video. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Leave any comments at the bottom. Appreciate it. Peace.